Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comic Art Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you guys have never joined us for a Comic Art Live session before, like what we're doing this weekend, you're in for a treat. It's a lot of fun. We've got a lot of amazing artwork to show you and amazing creators joining us. And today I am very honored. By the way, I'm Mark Walters of BigFanboy.com. Thank you so much for being with us on Comic Art Live. This is my, I think, third Comic Art Live, and I can't get enough of it. So I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very happy to introduce to you a very phenomenal artist in his own right. You've seen his work on things such as Green Arrow, as well as the Eisner-nominated The Wretch. I particularly love his Green Arrow work, but I'm very happy to have him here today. And what's interesting is he's not here to talk about his own art. He's here to show some art that he has collected over the years, and it's going to be very, very impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Phil Hester. Phil, are you there?
Hi. Hey, Mark. How's it going?
Thanks for being here, man. This is such a great honor for you to show your personal collection with us today. I know you've got some phenomenal pieces, and I know the first one is really a doozy. So we're going to get right into it. But I got to ask you before we get into this. When was that moment for you that you realized, like, I want to collect original comic art? What was that first kind of impetus for that for you?
Well, I'll go back to like the old CBG days. Like, this will really date me because the CBG no longer exists, but the Comics Buyer's Guide was sort of like the comics world's newspaper. And it came out every week, and it, before the internet, it told you what was going on behind the scenes in the comics industry. And back issue dealers would put ads in that, and so did original art dealers. And believe it or not, they would sell pieces of original art out of the back of that, like that's sort of a classified listing without images.
Yeah.
So they would basically like describe a page to you, and if that page sounded cool, you could buy it. And that's the way I first bought a page. And to me, it seemed like I was already a comic book collector, of course, and I was an aspiring pro at that time. But it seemed like comic book collecting plus, you know what I mean? Like an even more intense form of comic book collecting, because the pieces you were getting really, truly were one of a kind. And then also, as an artist, I felt like anything I could do to see behind the scenes, I would learn something from. And if I could get a page and see how a page was made, I would unlock all these, the lost art, all these secrets about how to create comic book art. And so the very first thing I ever bought was like a Ron Wilson Chick Stone Marvel 2-in-1 page, sight unseen. And then soon after that, a Jack Kirby page, back when you could get a Jack Kirby page for $100.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, some of those ads are painful to look at now, but I know
but to me, the really exciting thing about getting that Jack Kirby page, it was a page from Inhumans, was the fact that it had coffee rings on it where Jack had set his mug down. You know?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And to me, that was like, oh, this is like a window into the creation of that piece of artwork that is irreplaceable. Like, there's no other way to replicate that, even in a really great reprint book or whatever. So the idea of getting original art from that moment on was like kind of a fever in me, and it never really stopped. And then as I became a professional and sort of established myself more as a professional, I started to do this kind of insidious process where I'd go to a show, and if I sold enough pages at the show of my own, my own artwork, I could turn around and go to the original art dealers or the auctions or whatever was going on at that convention, and sort of, I do the math in my head, and I'm like, well, 3 of my pages will get me 1 Wally Wood page. I'll do that bargain every day of the week. So
supporting your habit.
Yeah. So that's sort of how it started, and it's never stopped.
Well, we're going to get right into it. We also posted in the chat, and if you guys have questions in the chat, you can post them. I'll be happy to ask them to Phil. We've posted a link to Phil's Comic Art Fans Gallery, so you guys can check that out. But yeah, Phil, let's get right into it. We've got, speaking of Wally Wood, you've got an amazing page to start off with. I cannot wait for us to
I'll get out of the way a little bit. This is, we were talking a little bit before the show began about sort of the value of seeing pieces in person. And this is a perfect example of that. This is a page from 1952, from the last few weeks of the Spirit newspaper strip created by Will Eisner. And toward the end of the strip, Will was like getting pulled in different directions by, business considerations, and the strip was faltering a little bit. So he thought, well, let's take the Spirit to outer space. And who better to draw an outer space strip than Wally Wood? And so he turned the book over to Wally Wood, and what resulted were some truly mind-bending, beautiful Spirit strips. And this is from a chapter in the middle of that saga, and it's Jules Feiffer wrote a script that sort of not hinted, it actually purported that at the end of World War II, Hitler had escaped Germany in an experimental rocket and flown to the moon and met his death on the moon. And this seemed like a cool idea at the time. and Wally Wood drew it, and it was beautiful. And they handed it in to Will Eisner, and he's like, we can't say Hitler was the first man on the moon. That's ludicrous. And so to get out of that sort of tricky spot, they went back in and they corrected it. And I think Wally did the corrections, but they changed the Hitler character into sort of a generic South American dictator. And they changed the dialogue that hinted that he was Hitler. But anybody with any passing familiarity of Hitler can see this drawing. And right here, there's a little piece of whiteout where they sort of whited out Hitler's sort of telltale forelock, they usually had falling in front of him. And then they went through and added mustache and took out dialogue. But this is a perfect example of like why it's really cool to see artwork in person, because this page has been seen millions of times, but the minute I got it, I threw it on a light box so I could see what was underneath it, and I could see the original lettering, and I could see that the places where it had been whited out and gone over. So there's always a value, like, to me, in seeing the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm always like down to see like production notes and, underdrawing, things like that. That's what I truly find interesting.
Can you, by chance, bring that a little bit closer? I really want to see that center panel. That center panel is very fascinating to me. There's so much going on that page.
Well, it's got that classic Wally Wood kind of submarine background.
Oh, that's terrific.
But It's a spaceship. And I point something out here to artists. This is Zipatone in this top panel. Mm-hmm. Look how beautiful that Zipatone is.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Zipatone was put on in 1952. And it looks like it was put on yesterday. And that's just one of the weird vagaries of Zipatone. Sometimes Zipatone turns yellow overnight, and other times it stays pristine forever. And a lot of that has to do with the quality materials that Wally was using. He was using great stuff. But if you look here, you can see the whiteout around the mustache and around what would have been the swastika on the character's armband. And those are all things that they changed after the fact, but it remains a beautiful, incredible page.
Man, that is fantastic. We're already getting some great comments in the chat. Chris Lutz says, coming in hot with the Wood Spirit page. Sean Clancy says, the light box usage on old art is brilliant. Never thought to do that.
Yeah.
Colin Sullivan says, wow, amazing page. And then we do have a question.
Sure.
I didn't want David to think that I forgot about this. David Jacoy wants to know, hey, Phil, what do you consider your crown jewel? And is there any artist that you still hunt for? So we'll go ahead and kick off with that question, and then
sure.
We'll get to the next
I'm gonna show you my crown jewel, I guess.
All right.
But as far as artists I was looking for, there are people that I admire that I can't afford, like a lot of collectors. I would die to get a Jim Steranko story page, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's out of my price range. I should tell everybody at the beginning that I am not a high roller. Anything that I have that seems to be like a grail piece is probably something I got really early on before they were really expensive. or that I traded for. So, I'll show you. In fact, I'll show you when I show you my key piece here. Bear with me because I'm going through my flat files and I've got a million things. So if you have another question, you can ask me while I'm looking.
Court Carpenter says, "Hey Phil, we've got some great interaction here in the chat. Once again, guys, if you have questions, post them in the chat. I will make sure that I get to them." Phil is going through some art, and I think he's about to show us. He's about to answer David's question with a visual. And
this isn't it, but it's a really cool thing.
Oh, all right. Let's see.
It's got a cool story.
Oh, I recognize that. Yeah. Holy moly.
So do you know what this is? For people that don't know what this is the rough for the second cover for Spider-Man versus Superman. And it was being sold sort of like as if it were I think they were saying it was a John Buscema piece. And I looked at it and I was like, John Buscema didn't do that. I collect a lot of Frank Miller. So I recognize Frank Miller's gestures. And there's some telltale gestures in this piece. Mostly, you can see it in Spider-Man's leg here. You can see it the way he has Superman's arms reaching into the background. That's a real Frank Miller kind of twist to a figure. And then the real telltale sign to me was the way he has Parasite standing with his legs splayed in the background. That's very much the way Turk stands in Daredevil all the time. So I was like, I suspect that's Frank Miller. So I bought the piece before I confirmed it was Frank Miller. I bought it because I'd rather people know it was Frank Miller afterwards. I wrote to Al Milgram, who was the editor of the project. And I said, is this possible that this is Frank Miller? And he's like, it sure looks like Frank. And I do remember Frank dropping by the office and busting out a sketch for us. And this is probably that sketch. But it got accidentally returned to John Buscema since John was the artist of the book. So that's how it got listed as Buscema in an auction listing. But
wow,
it was a little bit of sleuthing and it was a lot of fun. And to me, that story, that sort of figuring out what it really was, is just as important as the piece itself.
Chris Lutz is asking, is that your biggest misattributed score?
Probably, yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's incredible. Court Carpenter was asking, Court, you might be joining us a little bit late because Phil actually already answered this question, but he was asking, have you ever traded your own art for art pieces? And
all the time.
Phil was saying, absolutely. He was calculating in his head how much he could sell his pages for and buy a page that he wanted. So very much supporting the habit, which is what we all do, right?
Yes.
Jeffrey Moore says, great, unique piece with the story behind it as well. Hey, Jeff, good to see you.
So while I'm looking, I'm uncovering things that I really like. And this is a Marshall Rogers piece.
Oh, man.
I like Marshall Rogers. I love the Detective Run and the Doctor Strange stuff. But a particular favorite of mine was his I Am Coyote strip that ran from Eclipse. And it was just so unlike anything else out there that I really had to get a piece from it. And so there it is.
That's fantastic. Marshall Rogers, first comic pro I ever met, and one of the nicest guys in the business. I really miss that guy. That's a great piece. Let's see here. Court, no worries, man. We're just glad you're here. So don't worry about being late. If you guys have any questions, don't feel bad if we've already answered the question. We'll be happy to go over it again. Let's see. Francis has a question. He says, out of curiosity, where do you sell your art nowadays? Big fan of Family Tree.
Oh, that's very nice. Well, I tend to sell in person at conventions. To me, that's more fun. And I like to interact with people. So that allows me to do that rather than have an art dealer. So that's what I would say.
Let's see. CJ would like to know, what would you recommend as an initiative for aspiring comic artists and storytellers as far as getting their work out there, and also how much How did comic artists and communities connect before technology? Oh, it's funny. We kind of talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, we did. In fact,
Yeah.
I ran across that just now as I was looking for the other piece. This is that Giant Man page that I was talking about. It's from Marvel 2-in-1, and I bought it sight unseen.
So this is your first page that you ever bought?
First thing I ever bought.
Wow.
And it was sold. It was sold to me as an incredible Giant Man transformation scene. That's what this little panel is here.
Uh-huh.
That was the incredible. I was in my mind, I was picturing I was going to get a splash page, but instead I got this. It's still really cool, but I did buy it sight unseen.
Look at that thing in panel 5. Wow.
Yeah, a Ron Wilson thing. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
And if I remember right,
and you said that's Chick Stone, right, on the inks?
It's Ron Wilson ink by Chick Stone.
Okay.
And it is. I want to say it was $35 when I bought it.
That's great. That's so great that you still have the very first page you ever bought. That's really great. I can't even remember what the first page was I ever bought. Let's see. More questions here. Nice Guy wants to know, are there contemporary artists that you collect? Contemporary artists.
Probably the modern artists I collect most right now are James Herron.
Oh,
and, Daniel Warren Johnson, and who else? James Stokoe. I tend to have a lot of their stuff.
Yeah. James Herron's really blown me away with Ultra Mega, and it's some really cool stuff. Okay, CJ says amazing pieces. David Jacoy says, hope you can show the McKean Hellblazer page and give the story behind it. Love your collection. Okay. Court Carpenter says that's a great first piece. Chris Lutz says hilarious. Travis Ellisor says that answered my question. Oh, I see. You were asking what was the first piece he ever acquired. Yeah, that was the Ron Wilson page. That was his very first piece of art. That's fantastic that you still have that. Hillary Barta, the great Hillary Barta, says, I need Phil to help me price my originals.
Okay.
We'll do. All right, Hillary. We'll make that happen for you, Hillary. We'll get him on that. Sean Clancy says, claim 3A for $35. Yeah. Sorry, we're not selling this artwork right now, especially not for the prices Phil bought it for. But nice try, Sean Clancy.
Just to change things, this is a page from Craven's Last Hunt.
Oh, wow. You know what, Phil? You're going to need to bring that closer because that one, it's a little hard to see that one. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little...
oh, my gosh.
It's when Craven is actually in the Spidey suit fighting vermin in the sewers. But this isn't my Grail. I'm looking for my Grail, and
can we see that first panel?
Yeah.
Wow. That is great.
I'm looking for my most important piece, and I can't find it. What does that tell you?
Shaggy Wong would like to know, were there any pages that you regret not pulling the trigger on?
Oh, yeah. All of them.
All of them.
Like, if I ever didn't buy something, I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I really regret in general was not buying Kirby Fantastic Four pages in the 90s, when they were, because at the time they were like $700, and to me that seemed like totally out of control. That was silly, but I should have loaded up instead. And also, I don't buy stuff as an investment, but if I did, I should have been buying terrible covers like all this time, like well, not terrible covers, but cheap covers.
Yeah.
But instead I'm more interested in storytelling. So I tend to buy storytelling important pages. All right. This is kind of a rarity for me as while I think the artwork is beautiful, it's a Rick Veitch inked by John Toddleben. I bought it because it's an Alan Moore scripted page, and it's a particularly great Alan Moore scripted page. If anybody remembers those issues of Swamp Thing, this is this leads into the annual where Swamp Thing goes into hell to retrieve Abby, and this is the last page of that.
Wow, what a great piece!
And it's signed by everybody, including Alan.
Can you bring that a little closer so we
Yeah.
can see some details? A
Yeah,
little bit closer.
On any John Toddleben page, you got to see in person to see the detail.
Yeah. Wow.
His so much of his texture kind of drops out in the final printing. That even great modern printing doesn't catch all of this. So it's really cool. And for people that don't know what these red lines are, back in the day, we used to mark what we wanted to be a color hold with red. And so this would be printed in something other than black. It would be printed in a chosen color. So
that's fantastic. Wow, that's terrific. Okay, let me catch up here on chat. We got that one. Court Carpenter says, brilliant, love that story. Craven's Last Hunt rules. Chris Lutz says, Master Race. Shaggy Wong.
I don't have Master Race. I have a story about Master Race.
Shaggy Wong says $700 for Kirby. Wow. Yeah, there was a time when, especially if you weren't that discerning about what the book was, you could get Kirby relatively cheap, but now it's just untouchable. So David Jacoy says, sorry to be the one asking all these questions. How much of your art is on the walls and how much of it is in folders?
They're all in flat files.
Okay.
This is a Dave Cockrum, Bob Wyachek X-Men page.
Wow.
From Dave's second run on the book.
Oh my gosh.
When they go off to fight aliens, the Brood.
Yeah, what issue is that?
163.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's the one where, like, I think Wolverine was ready to kill everybody rather than let them be born with Brood inside them.
Wow.
But it's cool, and it's got a money
center panel. Oh
yeah, money Wolverine. Yeah, can't beat that.
That is fantastic. Is that Cockrum inking himself, or who inked?
No, that's Bob Wyachek.
That's Bob Wyachek. Okay, got it. Wow, that is really something. Okay, let's see. I'm getting distracted by the art, so I'm missing some of these chats. Phil has a nice recent Declan Shalvey too.
I do. I can find that right away.
Okay. Bronze is Gold says, informative to learn about the red lines. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. I've got a few pages with those too. Court Carpenter says, I've noticed even in the last 10 years, original art prices have jumped up. That is absolutely true. If you were going to buy original art and you're just now getting into it, it's a lot tougher than it used to be.
Yeah.
Comic Art Live. I'm assuming this is Bill Cox. Oh my, love that X-Men page. Bill, I am right there with you. My God. Oh, is this the Shelby?
This is the Shelby. Yeah, this is the rather new Shelby. I got this in the last month or so. And I tell people that he draws comics the way I wish if my style actually worked, they would look like this. But not quite.
That's great. I Die, You Die says, are there any pages you bought for the character / title rather than the artist? That is a good question.
No,
just the art. It's always about the art.
It's always about the art for me.
Okay.
This is a Jean Paulion.
Oh my gosh.
Sad. I know. I don't want to bring everybody down.
Rest in peace, John Paul. He was so talented.
But it's a cover from Detective.
Yep.
And I think it's Ben Percy's first story, actually. First, big 2 story was this Batman story, and John Paul is one of those guys that his process is a mystery. Like, other artists look at him and go, "How is he doing this?" I don't get it. How is this stuff so photorealistic yet still so immediate, and high contrast? And it, even after owning this for a couple of years, I don't know. It's still a mystery to me, but it's beautiful.
It's incredible. His work was so great. Arnaud Bolas says, hi, Phil. CJ says, was there a specific... Oh, wait. Oh, okay. I thought I already got this one, but maybe I didn't. CJ says, was there a specific comic or story you wish there was more of from your youth? More... CJ, I just want to make sure I'm asking the question.
There were more of it produced?
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah.
One of my we're not getting to it yet, but one of my favorite things on earth was Joe Kubert's Ragman, which only ran for 5 issues, and I could have read that comic forever. Also, I'm a big fan of Joe Staton's E-Man.
Oh yeah.
And I wish that had gone on even longer than it did. And then, although I love Nestor Redondo, I wish Bernie had stuck around on Swamp Thing a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, totally. Real quickly, Phil, let me get through a couple of these because we're getting backed up here. Let's see. Shaggy Wong says, I hope Phil has the artwork insured. Fantastic collection. Tyler L says that Hulk is fantastic. I Die, You Die says, haha, rad. Thanks, Phil. Okay, now let's get back to the art.
This is a Daniel Warren Johnson.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
As anybody that, if you can see the Zipatone, you can tell it's Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his version of Paul Pope's Batman year. Was it year 100 or year 1000? I can't remember. Batman, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a cool Batman, and
I think it's year 100 if I remember.
Yeah, 100. Yeah. And Daniel's great.
Man, there's so much going on there. Wow.
See, this is the problem. Like when you come to my house to look at stuff, and we go looking for something, we wind up finding other things.
Yeah.
So like what I'm looking for is my Daredevil page.
Okay.
By Frank Miller. But I run into things like this. This is this is gonna be hard to see.
There you go.
This is a Dave McKean Batman.
Oh yeah, that's terrific.
And it wasn't done for publication. It was just, a painting he did.
Yeah.
But I saw it and I was like, I should probably get that.
Wow.
Because it's and there's no way, like in my Comic Art Fans gallery, I scanned it 1,000,000 times trying to capture the color on this, and I just couldn't. Like, you have to see it in person to really get what it looks like. So, and that's another, like we talked about earlier, that's another one of the benefits of like seeing things in person, know?
Absolutely. Let's see here. Nice Guy says, I know you said you don't treat your collection as an investment, but do you find yourself buying pages just so that you can trade them later?
No. I trade things under duress.
There you go. Chris Lutz says, absolutely beautiful Leon cover. Jeffrey Moy says, Phil, you say you like collecting art with storytelling. I'm wondering, do you miss having letters on the board, or do you like it better since you can see all the art?
I do miss having letters on the board. I love reading this. I like it when a page is a story, and being able to read it is important to that. So speaking of trading, this is one of the few things I ever traded for. It's the page from the Great Darkness Saga by Keith Giffen and Larry Malstead from Legion of Superheroes. And it's not visually it's not a great page, but it's sort of like emblematic of Keith's style.
Yeah.
But what's cool about it is it's the page where Brainiac figures out that they're fighting Darkseid, which is spoilers. Great. Sorry, spoilers for a 40-year-old story.
Yeah.
But I traded away some of my favorite pages ever from Joe Staton's kind of mini run on Doom Patrol in the mid-70s. I love that kind of wonky robot man he drew. And I ran into somebody who loved it even more than I did, and they had this to trade for him. So goodbye Joe Staton pages, but I got a nice Legion page from it.
Well, thank you, Joe Staton, is what we need to say. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, real quickly, let's see. Sumya Daz says, hi, Phil. How have you been? Nice seeing you again.
That's somebody you could have on here, by the way.
Is that right? Okay. Travis Ellisor says, does Phil have that Paul Smith X-Men page handy? I'd love to see that and have him talk about it. Well, we'll see if we can figure that out.
Handy is the
operative word.
Yeah. This is a Jordy Bernay torpedo page.
Oh, wow.
For people that are into him.
Love Jordy Bernay. Let's see. While he is looking for that, Chris Lutz says, you seem attracted to zip pieces, but I don't recall seeing it much in your own work. Have you used it much? That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't. I tend to be, my style is more high contrast, so I tend to not use zip. But it was the order of the day through a lot of the 70s. So a lot of people use zip, and it's sort of inescapable. I don't have anything against it. In fact, in the right circumstances, it's perfect. But my style is more, like anybody that looks at my stuff knows my style is more high contrast than most. So I tend to not use even textures. Everything is black or white and very flat. So zip doesn't have a huge place in my stuff, except during the very beginning of my career, when I was working in black and white, you sort of had to use zip to indicate tone because black and white comics have no color. And back then the printing was so bad, you couldn't use wash either. So you had, if you wanted any sort of tonal gradation, you had to use Zipatone.
Yeah.
While I'm looking for those requests, again, I ran into something. This is an Alex Toth Green Lantern page.
Oh, wow.
Inked by Terry Austin.
Wow.
Which is a great combo. They did a couple of jobs together. They did a Batman Superman story together too. That's absolutely gorgeous. But if you look in close, you can see a little bit of the dangers of collecting Alex Toth. If you look on those lines in the background, you can see there are marker lines and they're starting to degrade.
Yeah.
They're not terrible yet. And it just depends on which markers Alex used at the time. But I think these are Terry's markers because they're dying.
Yeah.
I have some similar Toth marker drawings from the same period, and he's using his own markers, and I don't know if they're filled with some sort of unholy ink concoction that he created, but they're not degrading and they're not fading. But they're clearly markers, but they're not dying. So I don't know what kind of alchemy he did, but they're holding up really well.
Court Carpenter says, yeah, there's some pieces that you just can't capture digitally, especially the painted ones. Bill Bot, this is Bill Cox, the robot Bill Bot, says, enjoying the show. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Court Carpenter says, love that Great Darkness Saga page. That's a good trade up, in my opinion. Stanley says, do you prefer covers or interior pages?
Interior pages. I have over 500. I have around 500 pieces, and I think only 30 or so are covers.
Okay.
Because, like I said earlier in the interview, I'm more interested in learning. You know, I'm more interested in learning about storytelling, and I'm a storyteller myself. So pages will always do more for me than. I shouldn't show this. This is one of the things that's actually not in my gallery. I bought, Walt Simonson doesn't sell his pages.
Right.
But somebody convinced Walt to part with his layouts for this issue of Thor. So these are all the thumbnails for one issue of Thor. You can't see them here. But
Phil, you're killing me.
I'm kind of mixed emotions about showing them because
I tell you what, could you show us just one?
I will.
How about that? Okay, just one. We'll give them a taste.
Because I know, well, it would take forever to scan them all.
Right.
You know, but I also know that Walt's not crazy about me having them.
Yeah.
He's not crazy about anybody having them. But I think the original owner passed on and this wound up in his estate. But as you can see, they're kind of rudimentary.
Yeah. I've seen some of Walt's layouts before, and you're absolutely right, but I kind of love. Oh, yeah. Wow.
The really cool thing is how much scripting he's doing in the margins.
Yeah.
You know, if you get up close, you could see that he's actually writing it as he goes. And I'm trying to find. There's a great example of. Everyone knows how great the lettering is in these issues. And I'm trying to find one where he actually letters a little bit, but it's all pretty amazing. And like I said, I'm addicted to process. So to me, I learned so much more from this. If you can make it out, this is a splash where Beta Ray Bill shows up. But it's just cool to have like a whole issue and to see Walt's process because he's, a master. And just knowing how he like both kind of writes and draws at the same time to me is really inspiring.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Rich Danny says more of a Toth man, sounds like. Bronze is Gold says, so cool. Tyler L says, Marker, the bane of comic art collectors. Court Carpenter says, marker that doesn't fade. Yeah, that's alchemy. Jill Luden says, hi, Mark. Hey, Jill. Mike Bravener says, wow. Chris Lutz says, the ultimate storytelling lesson. Jill Luden says, that is very, very cool. Rich Danny says, same. Process junkie. Okay, I'm caught up. All right, what do we got next, Phil?
Okay. Let's see. I'm still looking for my Frank Miller Daredevil. But speaking of Frank Miller, the man that almost drew Batman Year One is Trevor Von Eden. For people that don't know that story, he was lined up to draw Batman Year One before Mazzucchelli came on. And you can see from his, I think this is the Batman, like the issue before Year One started, issue 401. And his Batman's really really cool. And it had that same sort of immediacy that Mazzucchelli's did, but a little more freewheeling and kind of angular.
Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea that he was originally slated to do that.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of, so for the people that are asking about covers.
Oh my goodness, I know what that's from. Yeah.
From the Cars issue of Marvel Fanfare. And this is Tony Simons, who is the most represented artist in my collection. I think I have 15 Tony Simons pieces.
That's awesome.
And because he scratches the itch that I'm after, which is somebody who's great, but also somebody who's affordable. So
yeah.
Like, I load up on Tony.
That's fantastic. I Die You Die says, Phil, you mentioned selling your own art to get pieces. What pieces of your own have you kept for your collection?
A handful. I can show you some later, but okay. I think maybe I have a couple dozen of my own pieces that I haven't sold, because I've done that math. And if I can, like I said, if I can move 3 of my pieces and get 1 Wally Wood, I'll do it.
I see Moon Knight.
Yes, this is from early when Bill Sienkiewicz was still drawing a little bit like Neil Adams.
Yes.
But to me, what's interesting about this page is Bill did not ink it. This is inked by Klaus Janson.
Oh, wow.
So it's a neat combination. And you can see that some telltale Klaus moves here, like in this, the way this form is inked with like sort of one stroke that gets thick and thin and is very wet. That's a very Klaus move. And you can see it in the way he inks Frank on Daredevil as well.
That's great.
And just behind it happens to be a Jim Lee page. And this is an X-Men page. And the only way that I could ever afford it is it has no X-Men on it.
What issue is that from?
It's from 275.
Okay.
It's a really great page. I mean, the lettering alone makes it worth it.
Yeah, can you pull that a little bit closer so we can see? Okay.
Beautiful Orzechowski lettering. Scott Williams inks, who I think might be the most important artist of the Image era, because his look kind of became the dominant look during that time across the board, no matter what penciler was working under him. What people imitated about the Image look was Scott's style. As much as any of the penciler style, but it's got Jim's like absolutely beautiful sense of storytelling, and the fact that he can draw everything was really cool too. And it's got some Savage Land people. But if this had X-Men on it, it would be worth my house. But as is, I got it, I think, for a pretty reasonable price back in the day. One of the most terrible things about terrible and fun things about buying artwork is occasionally you'll see an old price in the corner or on the back, and you'll be reminded of the cursed times you live in.
Okay, let's see. We got some more stuff in the chat here. Did Phil contribute artwork to the letter section of the old... Oh, I'm missing who's saying this. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can get back. Oh yeah, Rich Danny's is saying, did Phil contribute artwork to the letter section of the Old Amazing Heroes back in the mid 1980s? I feel like I saw his stuff in the back of that magazine back then.
You did. That was my first published work.
Okay.
And I was just so thrilled to just get it. We got, I think, a check for like $4.95 if they printed it. They let you take either a check for $4.95 or $4.95 worth of Fantagraphics product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I took the check because I wanted to say I was a professional artist.
Let's see. David Jacoy says Tony is back. He recently did some commissions.
Yeah.
And he says he's doing $50 to $100 commissions. Wow, I need
That's
to get
crazy.
me one of those. Court Carpenter says, "Whoa, that fanfare cover, man, Court, I'm with you. That's like one of my favorite Marvel fanfare covers." Bill Bot is back. Smash that thumbs up icon and leave a comment after the show. Sumya Daz says, "More Batman, please. I know you have them." Court Carpenter says, "Yeah, I too love when lettering is on the page. It's just as much art as the rest of it." Hang on, Phil. I'm almost done. CJ says, "Phil, have you ever kept some stories that you create for yourself, or do you love to share everything?" We'll stop there, and then you can tell me the answer. No.
I don't. Does he mean like behind the scenes stories or stories that I've drawn? I do have some. I don't think I've sold any pages from the Wretch yet. I've kept all my Wretch pages. I really care about that character. This is one of my favorite stories when I was a kid, from Teen Titans number 13, George Perez and Romeo Tingal. And
oh wow,
it was the issue where they sort of find Robot Man ripped up in the jungle. The Teen Titans do, and then they sort of go back and piece together what happened to the old Doom Patrol. And the way George Perez draws Robot Man really just kind of tripped my trigger. And I'd always been a huge Doom Patrol fan, but this sort of this was like pure, like inescapable coolness to me to see George Perez, the guy drawing Teen Titans, the hottest comic at the time, draw the Doom Patrol, which was sort of like one of my favorite I'm drawn to like loser books, like Ragman and the books that can't quite make it are my favorite books. And to see who was like one of the hottest artists on earth drawing one of my favorite characters, to me was just like magic. So yeah, this is another trade page. I had a page from the Judas Contract.
Yeah.
And it was a great page with Terra on it. But somebody else who was more into Terra than Robot Man offered me this instead. And they didn't know that this is like my favorite issue of Teen Titans. So I made that trade gladly.
That's fantastic. Okay, let me catch up on chat here. Tyler L says, I've been there regarding prices on the back of the art. Rich Danny says same, and a contributor's copy. I Die, You Die says Perez Titans with Robot Man. Dang. Man, I'm with you there. David Jacoy says, I can give the link. There are a few pre-done pieces still available. Yeah, David, we'd love to see them. CJ says, my apologies if the questions are a bit vague. No worries, CJ. You're doing great.
That's all right.
Matt Moore says, wow, very nice. I agree with you, Matt Moore. Chris Lutz says, uh-oh, I have a Wretch page. Don't come after me, Phil.
I know how he got it.
He knows how you got it. He's coming for you. He's going to get that page back. What do we got here, Phil?
This is very hard to come by. It's a Kev O'Neill page from Nemesis the Warlock, which is not the coolest, the biggest comic book on earth, but just finding 2000 AD artwork in general.
Yeah,
it's pretty hard. And Kev O'Neill.
Look at the size of that page. What is the dimensions on that?
It's pretty huge. It's not quite twice up. It's wider than normal because it's for 2000.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is wide. It's very wide. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tabloid in England, so it's a little bit more odd. But you could see why when you get a look at these monsters up close, you can see why Kevin's style was banned by the Comics Code Authority. Mm-hmm. Because everything looks vaguely obscene.
Yeah.
Even if they're not explicitly obscene. And then he'd go on, of course, to draw the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But this is another case where the Zipatone looks brand new. There's Zipatone all over this page, including some negative zip, if you want to see up close. That's white zip over black ink. and it all
Yeah,
looks,
for people unfamiliar, to see Zipatone from a 40-plus-year-old page or a 40-year-old page, it's unreal to see it looking that new. That's amazing.
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. David Jacoy says, Kev is my whale.
Yeah, he's hard to get. Like I told him I had a couple of pages, and when I met him, and he was like, "How?"
Who'd you get him from? Probably the same guy that Chris Lutz got his Wretch page from.
Yes. No, he got that from my anchor. I know it.
Oh, okay.
Well, here's while I'm looking for my Frank Miller Daredevil. Like I know, like people are like, "How do you misplace a Frank Miller Daredevil?" This is a David Mazzucchelli Daredevil from Born Again. And at the time I got it, it was quote unquote one of the cheaper pages because there's no Daredevil on it. But it's got a beautiful sequence with Captain America at the bottom.
Ooh, yeah, look at that last panel. Wow.
And some cool Kingpin stuff. And of course, Nuke all over it.
Yeah.
And any page from Born Again is an instant classic. And I think I got this back when one of these would cost you $1,000, which was a lot at the time, but well worth it. This is more negative zip. See, there's some more white zip over an ink drawing.
Yeah.
This is from the Dead Man miniseries that Garcia Lopez drew.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite artists.
Yes, and he did this all by himself. No, he inked it himself, and you could. It looks gorgeous, and it's got zip all over it. A lot of negative zip all over it to kind of indicate these ghostly figures that Dead Man is speaking with. But to me, this is peak Jose. This is
God, his storytelling is so good.
Yeah, it's so phenomenal. The thing he does better than anybody else is, if you look at all these panels, these figures are rarely ever the same size from panel to panel. Mm-hmm. Because he knows that if you change the size of the figures from panel to panel, it kind of moves the reader through time. When characters are the same size from panel to panel, you think they have a temporal relationship. You think this is boom, boom, it's 2 beats.
Yeah.
But when they're different sizes, you know there's sort of a soft cut in the reader's mind. You know you're at a different point in the story, and it sort of pulls you along the story that way. And it also adds depth to the page. His pages feel like they're 3D. Mm-hmm. A lot of what in sort of the opposite way that Kirby's do. Kirby's feel like they're 3D because they're coming at you. Mm-hmm. And Jose's feel like they're 3D because you're falling into them, because the way he changes the size of the figures. So
that's fantastic. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left. Let me get through the rest of these chat things here. We got Chris Lutz says, "I got it from you, Phil."
I learned it from watching you. Oh, did he?
Brooke Turner says, "How has comic art where the pencils and inks are produced separately affected the comic art market?" Oh, that is a good question.
It is a good question. It's changed it. It doesn't change. I mean, I'll buy it that way. I prefer that when they're together because that's a more true synthesis of the pencil and inker working together. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather see that. But I have nothing against seeing them on separate pages. I do notice, like, for my own sake, when I go to sell pages, it's harder to sell pages that are on separate boards.
Yeah. What do we got here? Oh my gosh.
Talking about how much I love Ragman.
Yeah.
This is the very first drawing of Ragman.
Wow.
Joe Kubert did it in the production offices at DC and gave it to Jack Adler, who was the production designer at the time.
Okay, you're going to have to hold this closer.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to see this up close.
That's the first drawing of Ragman.
Wow.
And
oh my gosh.
Then Jack proceeded to mock up a Ragman cover with that drawing. I don't know what he was doing with this, because the real first issue we know, people that are familiar with it, is a close-up of Ragman. But he pasted up this kind of mock cover, maybe to sell the idea to the higher ups at DC.
Mm-hmm.
But he used this original drawing in the mock-up. And then this is a cool thing for process junkies. Back before computers, we used to have to do everything on overlays. So like if there was a logo or something, and we'd put it on an overlay instead of the in the computer. So it's just a cool thing, a cool piece of history to me to see. And I paid too much for this.
That is fantastic.
Because I'm a Ragman mark.
That's fantastic. Okay, real quick, let me catch up on chat here. Brooke Turner says, oh, wait, I already got that one. Evan Blessor, hey, Evan, says, do you get commissions at all, Phil, or only focus on pages?
I try to get pages only, but if a commission's really cool, I'll go for it.
Chris Lutz says, gorgeous. I love that Dead Man page. Stanley says, do you have any Golden Age art?
I do, but I can show it to you real quickly in the time we have left. This is close to one of my grails. One of my favorite comics ever was Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing.
Oh, gosh.
And this is a page from the issue where he fights Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where he's kind of ludicrously hiding out with an overcoat and a hat. Yeah. And a bunch of bar patrons notice that he's not human, and he gets into a fight with him. But it's classic Bernie. That's
great.
I figured out why I couldn't find my Daredevil page, because I was looking in the wrong. I have my collection separated by decades.
Uh-huh.
And I forgot my Daredevil pages in the 70s, not the 80s. So I will find it.
Okay, real quick here. Court Carpenter says, whoa, Ragman. Whoa, museum piece. Or Mike Bravenik says, whoa, museum piece, Ragman. CJ says, I love the first drawing of Ragman. Thank you, Phil. With the overwhelming artistic fields online today, what would you recommend to protect the work? That's also a very good question when it comes to original art collecting.
I keep them out of light. That's what I would say. Keep them out of the light. Keep them in flat files. If you do have to display them under museum glass or out of sunlight. This is a Joe Kubert Commandy cover.
Wow.
That Joe did after Jack had left the book. No, right before Jack had left the book. And Joe had taken over the cover duties. And it was for a little bit, a couple of years ago, they were kind of liquidating Joe Kubert stuff. I don't know if it was the family or what, but they sold it to an auction house that was kind of like letting it go a little too cheaply.
Yeah.
And so I loaded up on Joe Kubert covers for a while, and this is one of them.
Hey, guys in the chat, just because we've only got 6 minutes left, I'm going to stop taking questions, but I will read your comments to Phil so that he can hear what you're saying. Real quickly, I'm going to say, okay, David Jacoy, DC should bring back Ragman. Christopher Shield says, wow, Ragman, right, Mike and Court. He's was blown away as they are. Rich Danny says, wow. Sumya Daz says, oh my God, you took that Wrightson. Mike Bravenek says, wow, Batman Swamp Thing page. Yep, Grail. And then Mike Bravenek says that's a classic Commandy cover. Sam, you might be joining us late. Sam Maroney asks, how do you store inventory your collection? Phil was mentioning he does flat files. So that's how he stores it. So we got about 5 minutes left, and I think Bill is about to join us in here. But real quickly, Phil, what else you got for us?
Okay. Well, I could do this all day. And it may take me all day to find my Frank Miller Daredevil.
By the way, Phil, I just want to say this has been an absolute treat. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's really cool. I hope we can do it again. Bill Cox is joining us now. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good. Can you believe this stuff?
Hey, Phil. I'm glad. Hey. I wanted to let you know I'm so proud to have you as supporting CAF and putting all that artwork on there for all these years, and we've never had a chance to chat.
No,
so
yeah.
glad that you did this. Yeah,
I think your site is one of my first stops every day just to see what's new and see what people have added to their galleries. And even when you don't own something, it's just cool to see something like in a collection and know it exists and see it up close, And so it's an invaluable resource.
Thank you. Well, That's why I built it. I wanted to see the artwork that I knew was out there that people weren't able to or taking the time to display. And that was the whole impetus behind making CAF in the first place. I like looking at art.
Yeah, I agree. At the very beginning, we talked about this piece, which is the second thing I ever bought, which is a Kirby Chickstone Inhumans page, and it features the Mandarin. And we talked about it, but I said what was cool about it to me is that you could see Kirby's coffee rings. And here's some close-ups of the Kirby coffee stains for the people that really want to see a Kirby up close and personal. And any other time here, if you ever wonder if your page is a real Kirby page, look at the back. It's filthy. If it's a really Kirby page, it's filthy because if you've ever seen any photos of his studio, his drawing table has never been cleaned.
Wow. That is fantastic. Okay, so we got about 3 minutes left, Phil. Let's bring it home. By the way, to everybody that's been participating in the chat, asking questions, leaving comments, thank you so much. If I didn't get to your comment, I apologize. I did my best to try to cover everybody, but I'm as in awe of all this as you guys are. So I was probably hypnotized when you were leaving a comment. Real quickly, while Phil's getting another piece, I'll just go through a couple of these. Court Carpenter says, yeah, thanks a bunch, Phil. The stories behind the pages are just as cool as the pages themselves. Bronze's Gold says, great having an artist talk about the art that they love. Can you come back next con with more wood pages?
I can.
And Arnaud Burloy says, we cannot finish Phil live show without the Miller Daredevil page. I know he's looking for it, guys. I know he's looking for it.
It's in there. But I run into other grails while I'm doing it. This is a Kirby, the pitch Kirby created for Manhunter in the 70s. And it never got inked. It just got left in the pencil stage. But what I love about it, like I said before, I'm a process person.
Did we lose audio on Phil?
I still can hear.
Phil, we might have lost audio on you for a second.
Phil, I can hear you, Phil. Maybe it's Mark's got some issue, but you're good. Keep talking.
All right. So to me, to see the behind the scenes process that Jack went through to pitch a piece is worth as much to me as the actual drawing itself. Mm-hmm. And I bought this at a San Diego con from Glenn Danzig.
Oh, cool!
And I was so excited about getting a Kirby page. I didn't realize it was Glenn Danzig until I was giving him my money. And this is a callback to another thing. We were talking about markers degrading or not degrading over time. And this is a red circle sorcery page that Toth had done in the 70s. And the markers are perfect. They're not dying at all. And we contrasted that to a page that Terry Austin had inked with some markers over Toth. And you can see that the markers are starting to degrade chemically. But these still look like the day they were drawn. And they are marker. I've looked at them over and over again. They're marker drawings. So I don't know what sort of magic he was doing. I want to believe that he was filling his markers with his own blend.
Right.
But I can't be sure. But it looks like the day he drew it. It also has Contour crayon on it for people that want to know how that tone got on there.
Oh, wow. That's great.
But where is that Frank Miller Daredevil?
Well, I guess this will have to lead us into the sequel, Phil. We'll have to have you back. This has been so great. Bill, are we out of time?
Yeah, we are, because the John Paulion tribute starts in less than a minute now. But Phil, everybody wants me to have you on our weekly chat, so I'll reach out to you and we'll find out when I can get you on one of those, if you don't mind.
No, I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right,
Phil, thank you so much for doing this. This has been
guys.
Fantastic.
Thanks everybody who came by.
Thank you, everybody in the chat. Stay tuned. More to come.